Enuma Elish, Marduk versus Tiamat. The Babylonian Creation Epic, Chapter 1. In the beginning, there was only chaos, before the heavens were stretched wide and the earth had taken form. There was only the endless mingling of waters, from the sweet currents of Apsu, the father of beginnings, and the salt depths of Tiamat, the mother of all. The first stirrings of existence emerged. These waters of opposites, fresh and salt, calm and turbulent, merged into one restless sea. From their union came the earliest deities, dim and undefined, drifting like shadows in the twilight of creation. They were Lamu and Lahamu, forms of mud and silt, shapeless yet alive. After them came Anshur and Kishur, the horizons of heaven and earth, more defined, more potent. Then arose Anu, the embodiment of the sky, whose gaze reached to the stars. But with each new generation, the young gods grew restless. They stirred the waters with their movements, their voices echoing like storms across the primeval sea. They laughed, they fought, they spoke with a clamor that disturbed the stillness of their parents. Apsu, weary of the noise, looked upon his children with disfavor. The silence of his waters had been broken. The calm of the eternal sea was no more. He whispered to Tiamat, "The younger gods trouble us with their chaos. Their noise shakes my depths, their laughter disturbs my rest. I shall bring an end to them, that we may return to peace." But Tiamat, though vast and terrible, was still a mother. She hesitated. "They are our children, born of our waters. Can we not endure them? Let them have their play, for through them the universe begins to take form." Apsu's heart hardened. He longed for silence, for the still depths of nothingness. He conspired with his vizier, Mamu, to destroy the younger gods. Together, they wove dark plans in secret, preparing a spell that would lull the gods into slumber before unmaking them. Yet the whispers of conspiracy drifted through the waters. Among the younger gods, one was keen and cunning, Ea, son of Anu, master of wisdom and incantation. He heard of Apsu's plot and resolved that the younger gods would not perish, for though they were loud and unruly, they carried within them the seeds of creation. Thus began the first tension in the eternal waters. The father against his children, silence against sound, chaos against the stirrings of order. The cosmos trembled on the edge of its first great conflict. And in this conflict, destiny was set in motion, destiny that would one day summon forth the champion who would reshape the very heavens. Marduk, son of Ea, heir of might and wisdom, born to confront the wrath of Tiamat herself. The sea grew restless, its waves swelling higher, for the first blood of the gods was soon to be spilled. Chapter 2. The death of Apsu. The waters of creation still churned with unrest. The younger gods laughed and bickered among themselves, their voices echoing like thunderclaps through the boundless sea. Their sparks of energy, though uncontrolled, gave birth to the first currents of destiny. Yet Apsu, father of beginnings, could bear no more. He rose in wrath, his face dark with the silence he so desired. By his side was Mamu, his vizier and counselor, who urged him to act swiftly. Together they devised a plan of destruction. Apsu spoke to Tiamat, "Beloved of the salt sea, my consort of eternity, the clamor of these children wounds me. Their chaos breaks the harmony of my waters. My rest is gone, and with it, I shall destroy them, and silence will be restored." Tiamat's vast form heaved, her body stretching across the infinite deep. Her heart was torn between fury and compassion. She gazed at the younger gods, so small compared to her immensity, yet glowing with the sparks of new existence. She answered, "No, my love, they are born of us. Shall we destroy what we ourselves have begotten? Let them live, though their noise offends. In their movements lie the seeds of creation's order." But Apsu was unmoved. "Your heart is soft, Tiamat. Mercy will bring only endless noise. I will not endure it. With Mumu's counsel, I will strike swiftly and end their clamor." Thus, he drew upon the power of his depths. A spell was woven, a plan to lull the younger gods into slumber. When their eyes closed and their voices stilled, Apsu would unmake them. But the gods were not without defenders. Ea, son of Anu, the god of wisdom and cunning incantation, heard whispers of this dark plan. His mind, sharper than a serpent's tooth, devised a counterstroke. He sought the deep silence of his heart and called upon the hidden words of power. In secret, Ea prepared his own spell, weaving layers of protection around himself and his kin. His incantations wrapped like a net around the plot of Apsu, binding it before it could take form. When Apsu raised his hand to unleash the spell of destruction, Ea was ready. With words older than time, he recited his incantation. The waters trembled, and Apsu faltered. His spell dissolved like mist before the sun. Apsu roared, the sound shaking the foundations of the deep. "Ea, ungrateful son, you betray me." But Ea did not flinch. He stretched forth his hand, and from his wisdom came a mighty enchantment. He cast it upon Apsu, wrapping the father of beginnings in a net of silence. No longer could Apsu command his waters. His strength faltered, his limbs grew heavy as stones. Then Ea, swift and resolute, struck. With the incantations of power, he slew Apsu, ending the life of the first father. The waters shuddered with shock. Silence returned, but not the silence Apsu had desired. It was the silence of death. Mummu, the vizier, wailed in terror. He struggled against E's binding words, but the god of wisdom was merciless. Ea chained Mummu, shattering his power, and cast him aside. When the deed was done, Ea looked upon the body of Apsu, the lifeless vastness of the primordial waters. From this place, Ea built his dwelling, a house of splendor upon the waters of Apsu, a sanctuary of wisdom and creation. There, he took his wife Damkina, and in time, a son was born, Marduk, whose destiny would surpass all gods. Marduk's birth was a marvel. From the womb of Damkina, he emerged radiant, his body mighty, his eyes shining like the sun. He bore the strength of storm and the brilliance of light. His limbs were vast, his stature towering, and from his lips issued words of command. The gods beheld him with awe. In Marduk, they saw the promise of order, the hope of dominion over chaos. Ea rejoiced, for he knew that in his son, the cosmos had found its champion. But far across the endless waters, Tiamat brooded. Her consort was slain, her heart pierced with grief. The salt sea raged with her fury. Though she had stayed her hand before, now vengeance burned within her. She summoned her strength, gathering the venom of her wrath. From her womb she brought forth monster serpents with bodies twisted, dragons with wings of fire, scorpion men, storm demons, and hounds of terror. She raised Kingu, her new consort, and placed upon him the tablet of destinies, giving him authority over her army. "Go, Kingu," she thundered, "lead my legions against the children of the gods. Let their blood wash away E's treachery. Let the silence of Apsu be avenged." Thus, the cosmos braced for a greater war. Apsu had fallen, but his death had kindled a fire in Tiamat's heart. And from this fire would arise the battle that would decide the fate of heaven and earth. Chapter 3. The Rise of Tiamat's Wrath. The waters of eternity roiled in anguish. The body of Apsu, the father of beginnings, lay defeated, silent in death. His dwelling, once the still and endless depth, now became the sanctuary of Ea, shining with wisdom and guarded by enchantments. From within this new seat of power, Ea rejoiced in the birth of his son Marduk, radiant as the sun and mighty as the storm. But far away, in the vast and unending salt sea, Tiamat mourned. She stretched her immense body across the depths, her eyes blazing with grief. The laughter of the younger gods, once tolerated, now rang in her ears as mockery. The stillness she had once defended was gone. Her beloved Apsu, the father of the first waters, had been struck down by their treachery. Her sorrow deepened into rage. "They have murdered my consort," she cried, her voice shaking the pillars of creation. "They have shed the first divine blood. Shall I remain silent while the children I bore defy me? Shall I let Ea, who betrayed and slew his father, prosper in triumph?" Her fury churned the sea into storms. Waves rose high, thunder rolled, and lightning split the darkness. The younger gods trembled at the sound, for they felt the wrath of the mother stirring in her depths. In her fury, Tiamat resolved to raise an army unlike any seen before. From her womb she birthed horrors shaped from the chaos of the deep. She fashioned serpents with venom-dripping fangs, dragons whose wings blotted out the sky, storm demons who howled with hurricane voices, and scorpion men with stingers that dripped death. Each creature she armed with a terror of its own, bow and spear, fang and flame. Their eyes glowed with fire, their scales gleamed like polished bronze. She multiplied them until her legion filled the seas, a tide of chaos ready to drown the young gods. Yet even this was not enough. To lead her hosts, she chose Kingu, her new consort, a god of cunning and dark strength. To him she gave the most dreaded gift of all, the Tablet of Destinies, upon which was inscribed the decree of universal order. Whoever bore the tablet commanded fate itself, shaping past, present, and future. Tiamat pressed the tablet upon Kingu's chest, binding it with unbreakable seals. By this authority, she proclaimed, "You shall command my armies. The heavens shall tremble at your word, and the children of Ea shall fall before you." Kingu swelled with pride and power. Around him, the monsters roared their allegiance. The salt sea foamed, and the skies grew black with their cries. Meanwhile, in the shining abode of Ea, the younger gods gathered in fear. The storms of Tiamat rattled the foundations of their dwelling, and visions of her monstrous host filled their dreams. They turned to Ea, their protector, but even his wisdom faltered before such might. Ea spoke gravely to the assembly. "Tiamat rises against us. She, who once defended us, now seeks vengeance. She has filled the seas with monsters and given Kingu the Tablet of Destinies. Her power is vast greater than the strength of any single god." Terror seized the gods. They murmured among themselves, "Who shall face her? Who shall stand against the mother of chaos? If Ea cannot, then surely none can." Ea looked upon his son Marduk, whose eyes shone like twin suns, whose breath stirred the winds. In his heart, Ea knew that the destiny of the gods rested in this child. But Marduk was still young, his power not yet tested in war. Then Anshur, father of Anu, spoke from the high heavens, Summon Anu, the god of the skies. Perhaps he shall go forth to challenge Tiamat." So Anu descended, radiant with the power of the heavens. He approached Tiamat's lair, but when he beheld her monstrous host, his courage faltered. The venomous dragons, the winged serpents, the scorpion men with their deadly stingers all roared in defiance. Tiamat herself towered above them, her body stretching like a mountain of waves. Anu trembled and fled back to the gods. The assembly despaired. If even Anu could not face Tiamat, who among them could prevail? The shadows of fear deepened, and the laughter of Tiamat's army echoed through the cosmos. But Marduk stood among them, tall and unyielding, the fire of youth burning in his veins. He spoke with a voice like thunder. "If you will grant me supreme authority, you will place in my hand the power to command all gods. Then I shall go forth and face Tiamat. I will bind her in my net, pierce her with my arrows, and establish order upon the chaos." The gods fell silent at his words. Hope stirred within them, for in Marduk's eyes blazed a strength greater than any they had seen. Yet granting him such authority meant surrendering their own dominion, placing their fates in his hands. Anshur spoke again. "Shall we give him the rule of all? Shall we trust the destiny of the cosmos to Marduk, the son of Ea?" One by one, the gods nodded. They saw no other path. Against Tiamat's fury, only Marduk's courage shone bright enough to pierce the storm. Thus, the stage was set. Tiamat, mother of chaos, armed with her monstrous host and led by Kingu, rose to avenge Apsu's death, and Marduk, the young champion of order, prepared to meet her. The cosmos held its breath, for the greatest battle of creation was about to begin. Chapter 4: The Council of the Gods and Marduk's Oath. The heavens trembled as Tiamat's army surged within the sea of chaos. The younger gods, shaken by fear, gathered in urgent council. They had seen Anu turn back from the monstrous host, and even E's wisdom faltered before such overwhelming power. It was in this hour of dread that Marduk, son of Ea, rose and offered himself as champion. But his offer came with a price. Marduk stood in the assembly, tall as a tower of flame, his eyes blazing with the brilliance of the sun. His voice rolled like thunder as he proclaimed, "Fathers, elders, creators of heaven and earth, if you would have me fight this battle on your behalf, then grant me supreme authority. Place your destinies in my hand. Whatever my command, let it be law. Whatever I decree, let it stand unchallenged. For only with sovereignty can I bind Tiamat, slay her brood, and bring order to the cosmos." At his words, a hush fell upon the gathering. The gods murmured among themselves. To yield such power was no small thing, for it meant surrendering the very essence of their freedom. Yet the shadow of Tiamat loomed over them all, and her army threatened to drown creation in endless night. Ea, father of Marduk, rose to speak. "My son is bold, but his strength is unmatched. He carries within him the winds of heaven and the fire of the storm. Who else among us dares to face Tiamat, mother of monsters? Who else has the courage to stand before her fury? Give him your trust, for without him all is lost." Anshur, elder of the gods, nodded solemnly. "Ea speaks true. Anu has turned back. None of us dares lift a hand against her. If Marduk demands authority, then let us grant it. Better one sovereign among us than none to defend us." The council agreed. Yet before surrendering their dominion, they sought a sign of Marduk's power. They brought forth a robe, radiant and woven of divine threads. They laid it upon the floor of the assembly and spoke. Marduk, if your command is supreme, then give proof. Speak to this robe. If it vanishes at your word and returns at your word, then we shall know your authority is true. Marduk stepped forward, his eyes burning like twin stars. He stretched forth his hand and spoke, "Disappear." At once, the robe dissolved into nothingness, vanishing like smoke into the void. A cry of astonishment rose from the gods. Then Marduk spoke again, "Return." The robe reappeared, whole and shining as before, every thread restored. The gods gasped and fell silent, awe settling over them. In that moment, they knew Marduk's power was beyond doubt. One by one, the gods bowed before him. They placed their destinies into his hand and proclaimed, "Your word shall be law. Your command shall shape heaven and earth. Go forth, Marduk, and bring down the mother of chaos. Save us from her wrath, and we shall honor you as king of gods." Marduk received their pledge, and his heart swelled with the fire of destiny. He raised his right hand and swore an oath. "By the destinies you have placed within me, I vow to confront Tiamat. I will bind her with the net of the winds, pierce her with the arrow of the storm, and split her monstrous form in two. From her body I shall fashion the foundations of creation, and from her defeat shall order arise. I shall not falter, nor shall I rest until the cosmos is secured and the reign of chaos ended." The gods cried out with one voice, "So be it. Let Marduk be our champion. Let him go forth in power." Then they set about equipping him with the greatest weapons the cosmos had ever seen. They gave him a bow, strung with the sinews of eternity, and arrows tipped with lightning. They placed in his hand a great mace, heavy with the weight of mountains. They gave him a net, woven of the four winds, to ensnare the mother of monsters. To his side they bound the storm chariot, drawn by 4 steeds, whose mouths breathed flame, whose bodies shone with lightning, and whose hooves pounded like thunder. They gave him the storm and whirlwind as servants, the hurricane and tempest as companions. Finally, they placed in his hand a weapon unlike any other, the spear of destiny, sharp as the first ray of light, forged to pierce the heart of chaos. Clad in armor that shone like the stars, armed with weapons of divine power, and crowned with the sovereignty of heaven and earth, Marduk stood before the assembly. His form blazed so brightly that none could gaze upon him directly. "Behold your champion," cried Anshur. "Behold Marduk, king of gods. By his hand Tiamat shall fall, and order shall reign." The heavens shook with the cheers of the divine host. Yet, in the depths of the sea, Tiamat's laughter echoed, cruel and defiant. She felt no fear, for her monsters filled the void, and Kingu held the tablet of destinies upon his chest. Thus, the stage was set. Marduk, champion of the gods, sworn by oath and armed with the power of the cosmos, prepared to march into the abyss. Tiamat, mother of chaos, awaited with her brood of horrors, ready to unleash destruction upon all creation. The battle of eternity drew near the clash that would decide whether chaos or order ruled the universe. Chapter 5. Marduk prepares for war. The council of the gods had ended. Marduk now stood, no longer simply the son of Ea, but sovereign of heaven and earth. In his hand rested the destinies of all creation, placed there by the trembling assembly of divinities. Yet victory was not yet won. The shadow of Tiamat loomed vast, and her army of monsters stirred restlessly in the abyss. To conquer her, Marduk would need more than power. he would need preparation, strategy, and the will to wield his new authority. The gods, fearful but hopeful, gathered around him. Each god offered gifts and blessings, tributes of strength and weapons of unimaginable force. From Anu, Lord of the Sky, came the four winds themselves, bound into Marduk's net north, south, east, and west. With them, he could ensnare and scatter, imprisoning chaos within the breath of the world. From Ea, his father, came the cunning of wisdom and secret spells of the deep. Ea whispered charms into Marduk's ears, incantations older than the seas themselves, enchantments that could bind even the mightiest creature. These words, Ea said, will guard your heart when Tiamat's sorcery seeks to unravel you. Speak them boldly, and no shadow may bind you. From Shamash, the radiant god of the sun, came a flaming sword, its blade a river of fire, blazing with the fury of dawn. It would cleave through scales, bone, and darkness alike. From Adad, the Stormbringer, came the thunderbolt, a crackling sphere of lightning that roared like a lion when hurled. And from the elder gods came their blessings. Strike with our strength, rule with our authority. Let the winds bear you. Let the storms shield you. Let the light of heaven blaze upon your brow. Thus armed, Marduk turned to his own forge. For though the gifts of the gods were mighty, the champion of heaven desired weapons, crafted by his own hands. He took the bow, strung it taut, and placed at his side a quiver filled with arrows tipped with flame. He tested the storm chariot, a glorious vessel forged from radiant gold and iron, its frame bound with celestial runes. 4 steeds were yoked to it, horses whose bodies shimmered with lightning, whose eyes burned with fire, and whose mouths exhaled storm and flame. They pawed the heavens restlessly, eager to thunder into battle. To the chariot he bound the tempests, the hurricane, the whirlwind, the gale, and the cyclone, each one howling as if alive, ready to sweep destruction upon the enemies of order. When all was prepared, Marduk rose to his full height. He clothed himself in armor of radiant scales, each plate gleaming with the brilliance of stars. Across his chest he strapped the breastplate of immovable destiny, a gift from the gods, said to be unbreakable even to the claws of chaos. His helm was wrought in the shape of a crown, encircled with rays of light, so that his visage blazed like the sun at noonday. Then Marduk lifted his weapons high and roared, "Behold, I am armed. The winds obey me, the storms follow me, and the fires of heaven burn in my grasp. By the destinies you have placed in my hand, I will go forth to meet Tiamat. Her brood of horrors shall scatter like chaff in the whirlwind, and her reign of terror shall end." The heavens shook at his words. The gods shouted and clashed their weapons in approval. "Go, Marduk, strike down chaos. We shall honor you as king forever." But though the gods rejoiced, shadows of doubt whispered among the younger ones. Could even Marduk, though armed with storms and fire, stand against the mother of monsters? Tiamat was no mere beast. She was primordial chaos itself. Her body vast as the ocean, her scales uncountable, her roar able to shatter the foundations of the sky. And she was not alone. At her side marched Kingu, her consort, bearing the tablet of destinies, which gave him authority over all fates. Behind them trailed legions of demons, serpents with wings of flame, dragons with venomous breath, scorpion men with stingers sharp as spears, and monstrous hounds with 7 heads. Knowing this, Marduk did not rush into war blindly. He prepared his strategy. Tiamat must be bound before she is slain, he declared. If she is free to rage, her fury will shake the heavens apart. I will cast my net, woven from the winds, to ensnare her limbs. Then I will summon the storm to fill her belly with gales, stretching her wide until she falters. Only then shall I strike with the spear and the arrow of lightning, piercing her heart. The gods marveled at his plan, for none had thought to outwit the Chaos Mother with cunning as well as strength. Ea, pleased, nodded in approval. You are my son indeed, not only strong but wise. Go with my blessing, and may your strategy prevail. With his war plan laid, Marduk ascended his storm chariot. The 4 steeds screamed as thunder rolled from their hooves. The net of winds unfurled beside him, fluttering as though alive. The bow gleamed upon his back, the flaming sword at his side, the thunderbolt ready in his hand. The cosmos fell silent as the gods beheld him, their last hope blazing with fire and storm. They raised their voices together. Go, Marduk, and conquer chaos. Go, and bring order to the world. Marduk raised his hand in solemn oath once more. By your destinies, I swear, either Tiamat shall fall, or I shall perish in the abyss. There will be no retreat, no turning back. Today, the fate of the universe will be written in blood and fire. Then, with a crack of thunder, the storm chariot surged forward. The 4 steeds leaped into the void, lightning flashing in their wake. Marduk rode forth from the council of the gods into the yawning darkness, where Tiamat and her legions awaited. The winds howled, the seas roared, and the stars trembled in their courses. The champion of the gods had gone to war. Chapter 6. The Clash of Armies. The storm chariot thundered across the void, lightning flashing from its wheels, winds shrieking like 1,000 voices. Marduk, armed with bow, net, thunderbolt, and flaming sword, surged forward, his visage radiant as the sun. His cry shook the cosmos. Tiamat, I come for you. The abyss answered with a roar, low and endless, the sound of oceans crashing together in fury. Out of the darkness surged Tiamat's legions, monstrous abominations born of her wrath. The first wave rushed like a tide of nightmares, and their number was beyond counting. There came the serpent dragons, their scales black as obsidian, their mouths dripping venom that hissed like boiling acid. Wings of fire bore them aloft, and their eyes gleamed with the malice of chaos. There came the scorpion men, with bodies half human, half insect, their stingers raised like spears, dripping poison, potent enough to fell even the gods. There came the lion demons, robed in shadow, with claws sharp as lightning, and jaws that howled with hunger for blood. There came the 7-headed hounds, snarling, snapping, each head baying a different note of terror. And behind them all came Kingu, her chosen consort, bearing upon his chest the tablet of destinies, glowing with divine power. Its symbols writhed like living flames, granting him authority to command the fates of gods and men alike. At their center, vast and terrible, loomed Tiamat herself. Her body stretched like a continent of scales, her wings spanning the heavens, her eyes burning like twin suns of hatred. Her mouth, when it opened, was a cavern of storms, and her roar was thunder that shattered stars. She rose from the waters, with fury unmatched, the sea itself rising to crown her. The 2 hosts collided with the violence of creation itself. Marduk loosed the 4 winds he carried, and they screamed into the ranks of monsters. The gale lifted dragons from the air, smashing them against one another. Whirlwinds spun through the scorpion men, scattering their ranks and breaking their stingers. A hurricane engulfed the seven-headed hounds, hurling them into the abyss. But Tiamat's brood did not falter. The dragons rallied, spitting venom so fierce it burned the winds themselves. The lion demons leaped onto the storm chariot, clawing at its wheels of lightning. The scorpion men thrust their stingers toward Marduk, each strike a lance of death. Marduk answered with fire. He swung the flaming sword, cutting down beasts in arcs of white flame. He hurled the thunderbolt, and a scorpion man exploded into dust. He drew his bow, loosing arrows that streaked like meteors, piercing dragon after dragon. Each shot was a star falling from the heavens. Still, the monsters pressed on. The storm chariot buckled under their weight, sparks flying as claws tore at its frame. The four steeds screamed and lashed out with hooves of lightning, crushing skulls and scattering shadows. Yet the swarm pressed closer. Then Marduk unfurled his net of winds. It expanded like a storm cloud, sweeping across the battlefield. Dragons were caught mid-flight, bound in whirling gusts. Lion demons clawed at nothing, trapped in the snare of air. Even Kingu staggered, clutching at the tablet as the net pulled him back. But Tiamat laughed, a sound like the cracking of mountains. She swept her colossal tail, and the winds shattered. The net ripped apart as though it were gossamer, and her army surged free. "Child of Ea," she thundered, her voice shaking the very fabric of heaven. "You dare to rise against me. I am Tiamat, mother of all. Before I was, there was nothing. Before I spoke, there was silence. You think your weapons can bind me? I am chaos itself." The force of her words staggered Marduk, shaking his grip upon the bow. Lightning dimmed, winds faltered. The gods who watched from afar quailed, despair touching their hearts. But Marduk did not fall. He planted his feet upon the chariot, lifted his sword high, and cried, "You were the beginning, but I am the future. You are chaos, but I am order. By the will of the gods, I shall break you." He summoned the tempests yoked to his chariot, the hurricane, the cyclone, the whirlwind, and the storm surged outward at once, screaming as they struck Tiamat's vast form. Her wings flailed, her jaws snapped, but the winds pressed harder, filling her belly, stretching her wide. Her roar shook the void, but Marduk pressed his advantage. He loosed another arrow, tipped with lightning. It streaked like fire through the storm, and buried itself in the side of a dragon. The beast shrieked, convulsed, and fell dead. The other monsters recoiled, giving Marduk space. For a moment, the battlefield paused, the monsters regrouping, Marduk holding his ground. The heavens were silent but for the roar of wind and the crackle of lightning. Then Tiamat herself advanced. Her wings blocked out the stars, her shadow covering Marduk's chariot. Her jaws opened, vast enough to swallow the storm whole. Inside was darkness unending, the maw of nothingness. "Now, champion," she thundered, "be unmade." And she lunged. Marduk stood, bow drawn, net ready, storms raging around him. The champion of the gods faced the mother of chaos, the universe trembling on the brink. The clash was not yet finished, but its greatest moment had begun. Chapter 7. Marduk faces Tiamat. The cosmos held its breath. The armies of monsters recoiled to the edges of the abyss, their roars silenced by the sight of their mother advancing. The storm chariot trembled beneath Marduk, its wheels blazing with fire, its steeds pawing the void as if eager to charge. Before him towered Tiamat, her body stretched like an ocean of scales, each one gleaming with poison. Her wings, vast as continents, blotted out the stars. Her eyes glowed like twin suns, burning with hatred, and her jaws opened into a void where darkness itself seemed to dwell. She roared, and her voice was the breaking of mountains. Child of Ea, pretender to kingship, you dare raise your hand against me. I, who birthed the gods, who cradled creation in my depths. You are but a fleeting spark, and I am the sea that will drown you. Marduk stood tall, his armor blazing with the light of heaven, his helm radiant like a crown of fire. He drew the bow of the gods, string-taut, arrow-tipped with lightning. His voice rang out like thunder. Tiamat, you were mother to the first, but your heart has turned to fury. You would drown the world in chaos. I will not allow it. The destinies are mine, and I will bind you. Your reign ends today. Then battle was joined. Tiamat surged forward, her wings driving storms, her jaws gaping wide. She spat forth venomous floods, rivers of poison boiling across the void. The scalding waters hissed against the storm chariot, striking like spears. Marduk answered with the net of winds. He cast it wide, and the hurricanes obeyed, swirling outward to ensnare her wings. The net clung to her vast limbs, holding her fast, but she strained, tearing at its edges with raw might. Foolish boy, she roared, shaking the heavens. With a lash of her tail, she shattered a cyclone. With a flap of her wings, she tore through the whirlwind. The net strained, cords fraying under her strength. Marduk loosed his arrow. It streaked through the void like a falling star and struck her shoulder. A burst of fire and lightning erupted, searing her flesh. Tiamat screamed, a sound so terrible that stars flickered and died in the heavens. Yet she did not fall. With fury unmatched, she opened her mouth wider than mountains, wider than seas. Darkness poured forth, a void meant to swallow Marduk whole. The storm chariot tilted, sucked toward the abyss of her maw. The gods, watching from afar, cried out in terror, "He is lost." Even Marduk cannot withstand her fury. But Marduk did not falter. He summoned the tempests yoked to his chariot. "Blow," he commanded, and the hurricane, the cyclone, the storm, all rushed into Tiamat's mouth. The winds filled her belly, expanding her body like a sail caught in a tempest. Tiamat howled, her body stretching, straining, unbalanced by the storm raging within her. For the first time, her movements faltered. Seizing the moment, Marduk grasped his spira weapon, forged for this very moment. Tipped with the fury of the heavens, he leaped high upon the chariot, his form blazing like the sun, and cried out with the voice of destiny. "By the will of the gods, by the order of creation, I strike you down." He hurled the spear. The weapon flew true, guided by the winds themselves. It pierced Tiamat's heart, driving deep through scale and bone. The Chaos Mother shrieked, her roar echoing across the void, splitting heaven and earth. Her wings flailed, her tail thrashed, the seas themselves rose in rebellion. But the wound was mortal. The storm within her belly raged, tearing her from within, while the spear held fast in her heart. Tiamat, mother of monsters, embodiment of chaos, toppled backward into the abyss. Her body convulsed, her voice thundered in rage and despair, until at last her roar broke into silence. The universe shook, then grew still. The armies of chaos cried out in grief and terror. Kingu, clutching the tablet of destinies, wailed as he fled. The monsters scattered, their courage shattered with the fall of their mother. Marduk stood upon his storm chariot, breathing heavy, his armor scorched, his bow cracked, but his eyes blazing with victory. He raised his sword high and roared so that all creation heard. Tiamat is fallen. Chaos is broken. The age of order begins. The gods, who had watched in trembling silence, now erupted in joy. Their shouts shook the heavens. Their praises roared across the seas. Hail, Marduk, king of the gods, slayer of Tiamat, lord of heaven and earth. Yet, though the battle was won, the war was not complete. Tiamat's body, vast and unyielding, floated in the abyss, a corpse larger than mountains, larger than seas. What was to be done with her remains? Could the cosmos find order so long as her shadow lingered? Marduk gazed upon her, and in his heart stirred a vision. From her broken form, a new world might be made. The fate of creation now rested upon what he would do next. Chapter 8: The Death of Tiamat and the Defeat of Kingu. The battlefield hung silent for a moment after Tiamat's final roar faded into the abyss. Her colossal body drifted, lifeless, across the void. The seas of chaos that once surged with her fury began to calm, but the air still carried the weight of her power. The gods who had watched in fear now shouted in triumph. "Glory to Marduk," they cried. "The mother of monsters has fallen." Their voices rang across the heavens, their praises lighting up the firmament like a storm of fireflies. But the war was not yet over, for at the far edge of the battlefield stood Kingu, her chosen champion, still clutching the tablet of destinies. His eyes blazed with grief and rage. Around him, the scattered monsters, horned serpents, scorpion men, and lion dragons looked to him with desperation. "Mother is fallen," Kingu roared, his voice shaking the armies, "but her vengeance lives in me. With the tablet of destinies, I command the fates. The gods will bow, or they will die." The tablet glowed in his hands, its inscriptions blazing with the very laws of existence. The monsters rallied once more, their cries filling the darkness, and they surged toward Marduk. But the god of storms was ready. Standing upon his chariot, he raised his net of winds once more. "By the command of Anu, by the gift of Ea, by my own strength, I bind you." The hurricanes obeyed. They rushed forward, scattering the armies like chaff. Beasts were hurled into the abyss, their wings torn, their claws broken. Some fled, others were crushed beneath the weight of the storm. Marduk's eyes fixed on Kingu, the champion of chaos, charged forward, the tablet blazing, his body wrapped in shadow and fire. Each step he took reshaped the void, for the tablet bent destiny itself to his will. "You are nothing without her," Marduk shouted. "Chaos cannot command the order of the cosmos. You are unworthy of what you hold," Kingu sneered, raising the tablet high. "Then take it from me, if you can." The two clashed. Kingu struck with the power of the tablet, and the laws of heaven shuddered. Stars blinked out, and time itself faltered. But Marduk, born of ease, wisdom, and Anu's authority, stood firm. His shield, woven of storm and flame, absorbed the blow. He drew his sword, the blade still warm with Tiamat's blood, and slashed. Sparks flew as steel met shadow. Kingu staggered, the tablet slipping slightly from his grasp. "Yield," Marduk roared, pressing forward. But Kingu's desperation only grew. He struck again and again, each blow fueled by grief, by rage, by the hollow crown Tiamat had given him. Yet the tablet, though powerful, recognized no master unworthy. Its glow flickered, its runes dimmed. At last, with one final cry, Marduk cast his net of winds over Kingu. The storm wrapped tight around him, binding his limbs, wrenching the tablet from his grasp. The sacred stone slipped free and flew into Marduk's hands. Kingu screamed, falling to his knees. The armies of monsters, seeing their leader undone, scattered in terror, fleeing into the shadows of the abyss. Marduk raised the tablet of destinies high. Its light no longer burned with chaos, but with the brilliance of order. The gods, watching from afar, bowed low, for now there was no doubt. Marduk alone held dominion over the universe. He looked upon Kingu, trembling in defeat. "You were chosen as her heir," Marduk said, voice thunderous, "but destiny is not granted, it is earned, and yours is failure." With a sweep of his sword, Marduk stripped Kingu of his life's breath. His body fell into the abyss, lifeless as his mistress. The chaos host was broken, its leaders slain, its power shattered. Silence followed. The seas of Tiamat stilled, her corpse floating vast and motionless. The armies of the gods erupted in jubilation, their cries filling the heavens. "All hail Marduk, slayer of Tiamat, conqueror of Kingu, lord of the tablet of destinies." But even as victory rang, Marduk's gaze remained fixed upon Tiamat's fallen body. Her size was beyond imagining, her corpse stretching across the abyss like an endless ocean of flesh and bone. The world could not simply ignore her remains. Wisdom whispered in his mind, "From destruction comes creation." And so Marduk, having defeated chaos, began to conceive a new order, a world born from her ruin. Chapter 9. The creation from Tiamat's body. The battlefield lay quiet. Tiamat, the great serpent of the primordial sea, no longer writhed in fury. Her vast body floated in the void, a monstrous expanse of scales, bone, and abyssal flesh. The gods gazed upon her in awe, for never had they beheld a corpse so immense, so terrible, and yet so full of possibility. Marduk stood over her, the tablet of destinies in his grasp. His storms, once raging, now swirled gently about him, like hounds awaiting their master's command. Silence reigned, broken only when Marduk raised his voice. "Hear me, O gods of heaven and earth, chaos is no more. From the ruin of Tiamat shall rise a new order. Where once she brought terror, I shall bring life. Where once there was void, I shall fashion the cosmos." The younger gods cried out in joy, their hearts swelling with relief. The elders knew Ea, and the others nodded in solemn approval. The war of creation had ended, and now the work of shaping the world must begin. Marduk turned his gaze upon Tiamat's colossal form. He lifted his sword, still dripping with her blood, and declared, "With her body, I shall craft the foundation of all things." Splitting the body of chaos, he ordered the winds to hold her steady, stretching her vast frame across the firmament. Then, with a mighty strike, he cleaved her form in two. With one half, he raised the arch of the heavens. The firmament shimmered with the glow of stars, newly placed to guide the cycles of time. With the other half, he laid the foundation of the earth, vast and solid, a realm where gods and mortals would one day dwell. "Let her eyes become the sources of rivers," Marduk proclaimed. "From her tears shall flow the waters that nourish the land." Her left eye became the Tigris, her right eye the Euphrates, winding veins that brought life to the desert. From her ribs he shaped the mountains, from her spittle the clouds and rain. From her tail he stretched the horizon. Even her venom, once a force of death, he set into the soil, a reminder of chaos bound within order. The gods marveled. What had been a corpse of horror became the blueprint of existence itself, the establishment of the cosmos. When the work was done, Marduk took the tablet of destinies and hung it upon his breast. "So long as I hold this, the laws of heaven and earth shall not falter," he declared. He then fixed the stars in their courses, assigning them to mark the seasons. He placed the moon under Sign, the sun under Shamash, and gave rule of the sky to Anu, the deep waters to Ea, and the underworld to Enlil. To each god he bestowed their stations and honors. Thus, what had been chaos became an ordered cosmos, each part functioning in harmony with the other. The fate of Tiamat's host, but one task remained. The monsters that Tiamat had spawned, her brood of dragons, scorpions, and demons, still lurked in the shadows of creation. Some had fled, others cowered, their power broken. Marduk cast his net once more, capturing them. He bound them as trophies, chaining them at the gates of the world to remind all beings of his victory. "They shall never again rise against the order of heaven," he decreed. As for Kingu, the traitor who had borne the tablet of destinies, Marduk ordered his blood drained. "From his essence," Marduk said, "we shall fashion a race that bears both the burden and the gift of service to the gods." The blood of Kingu mingled with the clay of the earth. Thus the first seeds of mankind were conceived, though their full creation would come later. Triumph of Marduk. When all was finished, the gods gathered in assembly. They bowed before Marduk, their voices rising in chorus. "All hail Marduk, King of the gods. He is our champion, he is our savior, he is our creator." They built for him a throne in the heavens, placing him above all. They swore oaths of loyalty, gifting him power and dominion. No longer was he merely the son of Ahiwazbel, the Lord, master of the universe. Marduk looked upon the ordered world, heaven above, earth below, seas flowing, mountains rising, stars glittering, and his heart swelled with pride. Yet deep within, he knew this was but the beginning. The cosmos had been shaped, but it awaited its true inhabitants. And so the gods turned their thoughts toward the creation of mankind, the final step in sealing the victory of order over chaos. Chapter 10. The birth of mankind and the rise of Babylon. The heavens glowed with new light. Stars coursed through the night sky, rivers flowed upon the earth, and mountains pierced the clouds. Yet the gods gazed upon this ordered world and felt unease. For though the cosmos had been shaped, its harmony required guardians, caretakers, and worshippers who could bear the burdens of life. Marduk stood before the divine assembly, the tablet of destinies shining upon his chest. "The universe is balanced," he declared, "but it requires a race that shall labor, honor the gods, and keep the order that I have forged from Tiamat's body. We, the divine, must not toil forever. Let another bear that burden." The gods murmured in agreement. But how should such beings be fashioned? They debated long, their voices echoing like thunder in the halls of heaven. Then Ea, wise and cunning, rose and spoke. "Let the blood of a god be mingled with the clay of the earth. From divine essence and mortal dust, a new race shall be born, mortal, yet touched by the gods. They shall live, they shall die, they shall serve, and they shall worship the sacrifice of Kingu." The eyes of the assembly turned to Kingu, the fallen consort of Tiamat. He had led her armies, borne the tablet of destinies, and betrayed the order of heaven. His chains rattled as the decree fell upon him. "Let Kingu be the price," Marduk commanded. From his blood shall mankind be shaped. His rebellion shall be turned into service. Ea approached, his hands weaving incantations of power. With a sacred blade, Kingu was slain. His blood spilled into a great basin of clay drawn from the earth. The gods gathered, chanting in unison, their voices weaving spirit into flesh. From the mixture of blood and clay, forms began to rise. Figures of men and women, fragile yet fierce, stood trembling in the dawn of creation. Their eyes opened to the light of Shamash, their breath filled with the winds of Anu, and their souls bound by the essence of the divine. Thus mankind was born. The purpose of humanity. The gods looked upon their creation with awe. Humanity was unlike any beast, for it carried both mortality and divinity. Its destiny was not eternal like the gods, nor fleeting like the animals. It was balanced, bound to serve, yet free to strive. Marduk raised his hand. These shall till the soil, harvest the grain, raise offerings, and build temples. Through their labor, the gods shall be freed of toil. Through their worship, the names of the gods shall never fade. And through their stories, the deeds of the gods shall echo forever. Ea added, let wisdom dwell in them, though limited, so they may create, dream, and endure. Let them love, and let them fear. Let them remember the gods with reverence, for in doing so, they keep chaos at bay. And so mankind began its journey, the rise of Babylon. Yet, the gods knew that mankind needed a center, a heart of worship where divine and mortal might meet. And so Marduk spoke, upon the earth we shall build a city. It shall be the dwelling of gods and men, a seat of my kingship, a place where heaven and earth unite. Its name shall be Babylon, the gate of the gods. The divine hosts descended, their powers raising walls of clay and stone. They laid foundations that reached deep into the bones of Tiamat, and towers that rose high toward Anu's heavens. The city gleamed with sacred splendor, a beacon of divine will upon the mortal world. Within Babylon, the gods fashioned a great temple, Isagila, whose halls would hold the throne of Marduk. There, the rituals of creation would be remembered each year, the Enuma Elish recited in celebration of order's triumph over chaos. The coronation of Marduk. When the city was complete, the gods gathered in solemn assembly. They anointed Marduk as supreme ruler, giving him 50 exalted names, each a symbol of his power: Avenger, Creator, Shepherd, Lord of Wisdom, King of the Four Corners. His might encompassed heaven, earth, and the underworld, binding them in harmony. The younger gods rejoiced, for their burdens had been lifted. The elder gods gave praise, acknowledging his supremacy. Humanity lifted its voice in awe, for though they had just awakened, they sensed in Marduk the hand that shaped their world. And so it was decreed, Marduk, slayer of Tiamat, would reign as the eternal king, and Babylon would stand as the eternal city of the gods. The eternal legacy. In the silence that followed the great coronation, Ea whispered to his son, remember, Marduk, though chaos has been slain, it stirs always at the edges of creation. The sea waits, the shadows stir, and mankind is frail. You have given them life, but they must choose to honor it. Your victory must be renewed with each generation. Marduk nodded, his gaze sweeping across heaven and earth. So long as mankind remembers, chaos shall not prevail. The cosmos is born, and its heart beats within Babylon. And thus the tale of Enuma Elish reached its end. A war of gods, the slaying of chaos, the shaping of the world, the birth of mankind, and the crowning of Marduk as king of all creation. The gods returned to their stations, the stars took their paths, and mortals began their endless toil, forever bound to serve, to worship, and to remember.